Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Welcome. Come on in. Awesome. So, we're starting straight on the hour. Thank you guys for coming today. So I will quickly invite our speaker to the stage. And as we're waiting, let's go over a few things. So our speaker today is Igor from Gateway. He is actually the CTO of Gateway. And today he will be speaking about building the next generation of Web3 on Gnosis Chain. Hi, Igor.
Hi. Sorry, I got a little bit under the weather at the wrong time, so you will not see my pretty face today.
But that's absolutely fine.
Okay, I'll try to make it a little bit more interactive. I'll do some I'm planning to do some drawing, so let's hope it works on an iPad, the platform. Otherwise, I have a plan B, but it's going to be hopefully a little bit more fun if I'll be able to draw something on the screen here.
Absolutely. That sounds great. Thank you so much. And while you're preparing that, if anyone does want to see Igor's beautiful face, you can follow him on Twitter. I've just dropped the link in the chat as well.
Yeah, I don't see. How can I share my screen here? I see Miro board, Google Documents, or a video. That's interesting. Okay, it's but it should be an option to share my screen here directly, or not.
Should be able to, yes.
Okay, interesting. Maybe it is a problem of an iPad. Okay, but I have a plan B anyway.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I'll have to hand wave a lot of things now then. Anyway, let me try to do the PDF thing then instead and see how it goes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so sorry about that, but it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, everyone else while you're... Sorry, my bad. Echoing again through my phone. Awesome. So everyone else, feel free to drop hello in the chat, GM. And while we are waiting for Igor, let us know where you're tuning in from today, and we can see how international everyone is.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, hi, Neeraj. What time is it in Canada?
Ready. Share PDF presentation. Drop and
MST. Oh, is that Mountain Standard Time? Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for getting up at 9 a.m. to come and tune in.
Oh, that's early.
Yeah, exactly. Igor, whereabouts are you?
I'm currently in Riga, in Latvia, but usually I'm based in Scandinavia, so it's in Sweden most of the time. But we travel around nowadays quite a lot. Okay, so let's wait for my slides to be uploaded to the platform and be processed, and then let's be okay. There's gonna be like a couple of empty slides, but I'll try to hand wave myself into or replace some things with maybe some extra narration, processing media, whatever that means. But yeah, I can start with just introducing myself, and then I can skip those slides because anyway, we're chit-chatting here. So my name is Igor. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Gateway FM. I'm an engineer by trade, and I've been in the overall engineering, like software engineering, for 14-ish years, in blockchain since 2017-ish. Oh yeah. Yay! You should see the slides, right? The first slide right now.
Yes, we can see it. Amazing.
Yeah, cool. How do I switch? Yeah, I see. So yeah, basically a little bit about myself, and then Basically, I did a lot of things before the blockchain, including building some mobile browsers at Opera. And then I kind of got into fintech a little bit. And from the fintech in 2017, I got a little bit sucked into the whole of the Ethereum bubble. But then you know that 2017 it was like the ICO time, or the time to do like the ICO and stuff like this. And then I got hired by Status, one of the big ICO. For those people who've been around since this time, probably should be aware of that. And I've been leading their core team for quite a while there. Basically, if you ever used a Status application or Status like a wallet or something, I basically, my team helped to build it and to do the production release, which is with some tweaks still live today. I know that they're building a new refresh, but it doesn't matter. From there, I went straight deep into the weeds of protocol development into Ethereum Foundation in the Aragon team. Been working on Ethereum nodes for a number of years on Ethereum protocol, some research that's currently, I mean, the closest one to be released is Verkle trees, but there is also this kind of the purge, if somebody remembers the Ethereum roadmap that has the merge, the verge, the purge, the scourge, and something else I don't remember. And the purge there was exactly what I was working on. Basically, the how do we do that? The state of an Ethereum blockchain doesn't grow out of bound as it becomes more and more successful. And from there, again, I've been there since 2019 until 2020, or something like this, 2021 even. And then basically we founded our own company called Gateway, which is a distributed around the globe RPC and validators services and other blockchain infrastructure. And basically we became also one of the core teams working on the Gnosis chain, which is the topic of today's presentation. And basically it's, what's it, 4 companies who are right now can consider themselves core devs of Gnosis chain. It's Gnosis DAO, of course. It's Nethermind, it's Aragon, and it's Gateway. Basically, that's about it. And what it means to be a core dev, basically you kind of plan on the new features of the network, you test them out, and you release them, give or take. And plus, you hold all the infrastructure around development resources on this chain. Again, which is partially the topic of this presentation. Yeah, and why we came very close to Gnosis, because we've been building the infrastructure for a while in a way that makes it distributed around the globe, like geographic redundancy and independent data centers and stuff like this. And Gnosis was kind of aligned with exactly that vision, with trying to make a chain what they call is credibly neutral, making sure that it's also distributed. There's no one country in the world that can take over the network, basically. So we are very, very aligned on that. So that's how we came together. And then today I'm going to talk a little bit about Gnosis chain in general and some cool features and cool protocols on top of this, including like Hashi, Cowswap, and Gnosis Pay and stuff like that. A little bit about us, and I'll end with a couple of slides with just for you, the builders, some tools and resources you can use to boost your development and to build on Gnosis, which is the kind of a little bit of a practical part. Again, initially I thought that I would also draw a couple of things, but I'll try to explain things by narration a little bit. So Gnosis chain itself, it's a pretty, it's a chain with a history, so it's a pretty old chain. It was previously called XDAI. It was the first side chain, like a sister chain to Ethereum. And it started as a chain on a consensus mechanism called Aura, which is so-called proof of authority consensus, which is basically means that the people who, like in proof of work, there are miners who create new blocks and include transactions there. In proof of stake, there are validators who do that. And in proof of authority, there are also kind of validators, but they don't really have any stake. they have to stake their reputation kind of to run this thing. It was initially just made very lightweight, so they don't receive any payments back, they don't have any stake. It's a well-known like people around the globe who were running this. Initially, again, it's in a very early age. And it was just launched like this. And then later, basically what's happened is that they decided to open up the set of validators there, and that's required some economic incentives for them, both like the rewards and kind of the punishments for when you're behaving well or misbehaving. And they did this thing called POS DAO. It's basically a set of smart contracts that were implementing a second token on top of XDAI that was specifically required you need to acquire them to be able to become a validator. You receive rewards in this token, and then basically you lose it if you misbehave, if your validator misbehaves. So, and then literally quite, a few months ago, like, what was it, like last autumn, less than a year ago, the Gnosis chain went through the same process as Ethereum. Ethereum, it was called the merge. In here, I mean, it also could be called the merge, whatever. But essentially, it's a consensus switch from the POS DAO plus Aura to Beacon plus execution layer kind of consensus. I will talk a little bit about that later, about why is it important. And again, this is one of the part that I know quite in depth because I'm from the protocol engineering team. So feel free to also write any questions or anything regarding this part. I'll be able to answer them, I think. And then the second that it gives, one property that gives, it makes the network really decentralized. Like it runs hundreds of thousands of validators at the moment. One more cool thing that is currently being built on the this kind of consensus mechanism allows to be built is these ZK bridges, which I will talk a little bit later about. But this is kind of the overview right now. So here I was supposed to draw a couple of things, but I'll switch to this one and I'll just explain these things. So why this switch was genuinely necessary? Because again, the chain was there, it was working for a long time, it was producing blocks, everything was okay. And Aura is not a bad consensus mechanism per se. It had one little issue with it. It was completely undocumented. It's like, there was like software written in Rust in the client that was called back then Parity, then was rebranded to Open Ethereum and then died eventually. And that's where the implementation was. So and there was a blog post about how it kind of works, but there was no specifications, nothing. So essentially, nobody was able to implement this consensus. The only exception was Nethermind. At some point, they managed to reverse engineer the consensus mechanism and build it into Nethermind clients. But at the same point, at the same time, Open Ethereum, essentially, the team left, and the Parity Labs is doing Polkadot right now, so no interest in supporting this part. And that means that you you stick with one type of node with a consensus that's still not really well understood and stuff like this. And there is already a precedent of switching a consensus live without stopping the network, right? So it was quite a big deal on Ethereum when basically it was a big deal that it wasn't a big deal. Like when the consensus on Ethereum was switched, it was basically, okay, we sat in the Ethereum Foundation office, we looked at the screen, okay, there is a merge block, oh, it's finalized. Cool. And that's it. So no major fires or things like that. So using this kind of experience, there was a decision to basically switch the consensus from Aura plus PostDAO into Beacon plus execution layer, which brings, again, the benefits for the network to be much more decentralized, brings more client diversity, because right now already in the execution layer, you can already use both Aragon and Nethermind, and Geth is on the way as well. For Nethermind and Aragon, you can use even as a validator right now. And Geth is in progress a little bit. And then also for you as a developer, it's actually like the beacon consensus brings a thing that's called implicit finality to the network, which means that basically in even in Bitcoin days, when your transaction went into the block, there is still a chance that this block gets reorged and your transaction gets thrown away and becomes invalid, which is fine in a blockchain, but it's definitely not fine if you either interacting between blockchains or you're interacting between the blockchain and the real world, right? Because you can tell that, oh, your transaction actually went through, so I give you coffee, and then this transaction gets reorged and I don't have money for this coffee, but I already gave you coffee, so I cannot reorg the coffee away in the real world, right? So that means that, and we kind of guessed okay, maybe like 12 confirmations is all right. Like if you like mine 12 blocks on top of the current block, then it's very, very unlikely that reorg will happen that deep. But then with the beacon consensus, you get an explicit finality. You can actually ask if the block is final or not. Right now, the final is the previous epoch, basically, is the final one. And the current is not, is potentially very unlikely, but potentially can reorg away in cases of some network situations or attacks or something. And then you can either the network, you can the notion that the network finalizes or not finalize. So healthy network will always finalize, unhealthy will not finalize, but you will know about that. And if you're building something that interacts with the real world or with the other chain, you know that as soon as this block becomes final, then basically, yeah, your UX or your kind of a communication is solved because you guarantee that the reorg will not happen anymore. Of course, right now you have to wait quite a lot of time, but there is research ongoing on the Ethereum side how to make it basically not every epoch, but like every second block or something like this, which will make it on Gnosis like 12 seconds finality, which is already quite decent for real world use cases. And of course, since it shares nodes with Ethereum quite easily, then it means that you will get all the new features from Ethereum research as well, including even cheaper things for L2s with 4844, some shardings, and all the niceties of the Ethereum roadmap. And it also allows the teams to a little bit specialize. Like there is almost no changes to the consensus layer for Gnosis chain. All of the changes are basically in the execution layer. That means that also supporting this chain is quite easier, again, for the node engineers. So that was a little bit about why and we like the consensus was switched and why is it cool to have a beacon consensus. And of course, it's like super distributed. Like there is no other consensus mechanism that can come up with that many validators. Like Ethereum, I think it's already 500,000 validators. Gnosis, it's going up. Like basically, we have validators in hundreds of thousands, and each of them is independent. Because in the most of the other proof of stake chains, you basically have I don't know, like a staker, and then you delegate your money to it. But in the end, there's like, I don't know, 10 stakers who hold like a lot of money. Sure, they have a lot of at stake, but it's still like very centralized. In proof of work, again, you have this Voyager and stuff like this. The miners, the big miners, who are essentially producing a lot of blocks. So it makes really like beacon consensus helps to make a really decentralized network, which is again important if we want to build a kind of a neutral, secure, and independent finance systems. Another thing that Gnosis still has is this kind of dual token model, because it started initially as a blockchain with a fee in DAI. That's why it was called XDAI. It has a fee in XDAI which is a bridged DAI token. This fee is a stablecoin, which gives a lot of cool options, because on the basically every blockchain, you have to pay fees in its native token, give or take, right? And that's a little bit weird situation, especially for, I mean, it works fine if you transfer like millions and millions with this, but if you want a real world use cases like buying something in the store, I don't know, anything smaller, it means that you're essentially paying fees in ETH for a payment in like USDC. Like if I'm buying like groceries and paying USDC for groceries, I also pay network fees on Ethereum in ETH. And ETH is kind of a, you can think about it as a investment asset, right? It's a little bit like you want to hold it because it grows in value. It would be like akin to you go to like your favorite coffee shop, like or whatever, like Starbucks or whatever you like locally, and then you like pay for the coffee in dollars. But also they require a couple of Tesla shares to pay for the fees for the transaction, which is like a little bit weird situation. And speaking of Bitcoin and Lightning, there's just not enough throughput for mass adoption. Like just the blocks are rare. It takes quite a lot to open this state channels and stuff like this. So it's a little bit of an inherent problem in the blockchain. Okay, so then we're talking about ZK bridges. Bridges are, I don't know, if you have heard about the website called Rect. It's a pretty interesting resource about every hack or every major hack or something that was happening in Ethereum and in the blockchain community, mainly in Ethereum and around in the recent years. And if you look at the hacks, like a lot of the hacks there, they are happening on the bridge level, because that's kind of a, again, is it not anywhere where blockchain interacts with something else, something outside of itself, is a little bit of a weak point. And then the current bridges are essentially the multi-sig wallet to some extent. There is basically like how a bridge works. Let's say there is a Ethereum and Gnosis chain, and the current bridge is essentially there is a multi-sig N out of M signatures, a lot of participants, and each runs their own signer to some extent. And the signer looks at both Ethereum and Gnosis, figures out, monitors some smart contracts, and when it feels like it signs the transaction on the target chain. If something happens on the source chain that it feels like worth, if there is a breach, let's say, if I put some, let's say 1 ETH into a smart contract of a breach on Ethereum, then the software, it runs, it checks the RPC, finds that, okay, my balance has increased there, and then you can mint the token, then it creates a request to mint a token on the other side, and then it signs, and there requires to be consensus of certain amounts of signatures. It's not a lot right now. It's like typical multi-sig, so it's maybe a dozen or something like that. But we can do better than that nowadays. So what's being built right now on Gnosis is this system of ZK bridges, which is basically, it's a very cool concept because of the beacon chain. And on the beacon chain, there is this notion of like scene committee, which kind of checks what the head block is, essentially what the head block should be. And you can make a very, very lightweight, very compute, not intensive on the compute, basically light client then that can check a header or a validity of a header of another beacon chain network. And since it's very low in compute, you can actually, it's so low that you can actually make a smart contract out of it. So what you can do is you can make a light client for monitoring Ethereum headers on Gnosis chain as a smart contract, which is like audited, open source, and it's really, really cool. And if you can validate the header of the beacon chain, from this header, you can get information through a couple of hops, but you can get completely provable information about like any storage slot at this block at Ethereum. And if you can actually prove this information, then you can definitely know, like as a smart contract, if my balance on a bridge increased or not. and you actually know if the block is like finalized and things like this, and how many were voted for it, and how likely is it to rework. So it's kind of a risk profile. Again, there is another thing that I wanted to draw a little bit on, but basically you can think about it. If you want a two-way bridge in this way, you implement, and both of the chains are kind of a beacon chain-esque, so they use beacon consensus. You can implement two-way bridge by implementing two smart contracts on different sides. And of course, you still need some software to provide to feed them the actual headers and to provide the data from the storage slot. But the smart contract will be able to prove it, like mathematically prove it on chain and stuff like this. So again, it's a little bit more expensive way to bridge things, of course, because it requires gas for proving. But it's much more safe because it doesn't just trust what the RPC returns. It kind of checks it. And moreover, like if you are with this basically evolutions of ZK VMs and stuff like this, you can actually prove all the state transitions in the future and compact them into a single proof that the smart contract can prove. And then you don't even need to have like this kind of a storage slot oracle to check it. So it's a very nice technology for the future. And then there is a Hashi, which is again, I have a little bit like here, which makes it easy to kind of orchestrate these bridges and to unify the bridge protocols. I will talk a little bit later about this right now. So basically, this is like how Hashi looks like. Again, it's based on the block headers, as I told, because block headers are enough to prove a lot of information. As soon as you can check them, because you can do like storage proofs, you can actually later do state transition proofs and stuff like that. But also, again, since it's a bit of an overview here, there is the special workshop on Hashi on the 10th of May. So please join this to learn, because it's a very pluggable system. It's very experimental right now, but it's time to hack on this kind of a systems while they are very, very young, right? So it's good. And they have a very cool logo, so I also appreciate it. The next thing is basically that's, again, as I told, this allows to, if more chains will implement this kind of a beacon consensus, then we can think about Ethereum and Gnosis and this kind of bridges to be like a little bit like Cosmos, when you can bridge things between them and work across the blockchains, which is also really, really cool, cool concept. Now a little bit about Cowswap. Again, I'm coming from the core protocol development, so automatic market makers is not my and exchanges is not my strongest part, but I'll try. So basically, what's cool about Cowswap is a couple of things. One thing that they use this thing called coincidence of wants, which is cow actually, and basically what it means that if I have something that I want to exchange for something else and you have the opposite, then we can directly trade with each other without the third party, right? If I have bread and I want vegetables and you have vegetables and want bread and we're both ready to exchange, we can exchange to each other like a barter style without going to a shop, both of us. So what Cowswap tries to do, and where it saves money, is basically it gets a lot of this wants to trade and it builds batches out of it, and it finds the reverse ones and tries to fulfill them directly. That means it's the cheapest way to fulfill them. But if they can fulfill the full thing, then it goes the traditional way of like DEX aggregation and finding a path in real DEXs and stuff like that. Also, since it groups those batches, you get a kind of cool properties like everybody gets a fair price inside, because it's kind of split between direct trades and DEXs. And also it's more math proof because you don't work on the batches by batches level, or not on trade by trade level, but you work batches by batches. They are mixed up a little bit, so it's a little bit trickier to sandwich and stuff like that. And of course, to make it decentralized, you basically add a little bit more extra actors to the protocol. Like there are some drivers who are searching for the correct solution about what are direct trades, what are DEX routes, or the solvers, sorry. And then there is a driver who checks which solution is the best, and it works on the transparent algorithm, and then finds the best solution, and the solver settles it on chain and gets its own cut on it, basically. And if we look at the whole ecosystem on top of Gnosis, is basically like a new fintech world, if you want, because we have Gnosis Safe, which is very cool multi-sig, which could be an on-chain bank. You already have like a very nice stable coin. Of course, there is DAI, but there's also Euro stable coin from Ethereum. There is liquidity providers like Karpatki. The whole chain, as I told, it's very, very decentralized. And also there is this one thing that's basically built on top of Gnosis. It's called Gnosis Pay, and it allows to basically merge together a little bit of a hardware wallet plus a Visa standard card, because basically you actually have a kind of a signature or kind of a wallet on the credit card like thing, but you also have a chip for Visa. And if your point of sales thingy basically supports direct transactions on the blockchain, which there are some experimental ones, then you can pay on the blockchain directly, or it can go all this way through like payment terminal, acquiring bank, issuing bank, blah, 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 through a special bridge, through a special L2 on top of the Gnosis, and then being withdrawn in your Gnosis safe or something, without really, again, being all on chain as soon as it leaves the banking system. So it's also pretty cool. I saw it in action in Denver this year. We kind of bought coffee in Starbucks with it. So there are first, like I think, 1,000 cards that are already released. Again, it's a little bit of a proof of concept, but it's really, really cool. And then a little bit about us, because we're like half an hour already. And I wanted to answer the questions if I could, because again, I kind of didn't exactly know what's to aim for here. So I'm kind of opening the thing for you to ask me a little more question, but a little bit about Gateway and us. Again, we provide for Gnosis in particular free and public RPCs, both on our website and the ones that are on Gnosis. They are mostly us. There is a little bit of Gnosis nodes, but like 75% chance that you will get to our nodes instead if you use the Gnosis RPCs. We help to make sure that Chiado functions. We're running quite a lot of validators on Chiado. And Chiado, we kind of decided to run it a little bit like Sepolia on Ethereum, when there is not that many validators right now, and they are controlled by a few entities, but then it's stable for people who want to experiment on DeFi. So it doesn't just break, like for instance, some other chains do, because a lot of people just entered as validators and did nothing, and the chain become like unstable and stuff like this. Then we're also working on the bridges, and then of course we are already used by some cool projects that are listed on this website. So yeah, feel free to use us as well. We are one of the co-sponsors of this hackathon. We have our own bounty there, like on the website. On the previous, okay, we have a workshop as well, right, on the 9th of May, of course. So who are our competitors? Yeah, I'll answer a couple of questions right now. So on the research, more on the previous slide. So which one do you mean? Is it like about Cowswap, Mirage, or the pay, Gnosis Pay? It's kind of here and there right now. I don't think there is like a certain compilation of resources that exists like in public about it. I can talk a little bit more about it if you want. I'll just finish my slides and I can just spend maybe 5 extra minutes to tell a little bit more about Gnosis Pay, and then we can discuss it. For Gateway, again, typical competitors like Chainstack, Anchor, Alchemy, Infura, and similar things. So that's the competitors. And then a little bit for you specifically. There is the ecosystem of Gnosis Chain of different tools. I want to actually look at them and use them quite a bit. For instance, things like Tenderly supports Gnosis. There are like a lot of infrastructure provided. There are cool things like Hopper, Cal Protocol, and some others. So it's really cool, like maybe helpful for you to use some of this in your hackathon. And another thing is basically here is the list of go-to resources for different things about Gnosis, like the main website, documentation on the chain, the faucet if you want some tokens, because people always want some test tokens for some things. There is the very cool initiative called Validate Gnosis, which is basically incentive to bring Gnosis validators on all continents in the world. So just read about it. There, it's like it's pretty cool, like intro, and also I think there is an initiative about maybe helping to obtaining tokens to, if you want to validate in some part of the world that has no Gnosis validators at the moment. And of course, there is our page on Gateway, which provides some RPCs, WebSockets, checkpointing for beacon nodes, and other things that you might need when you develop on the Gnosis chain. All right, then Gnosis Pay them. I will try to get a little bit more towards this slide. The interface isn't ideal, but I got there. Yeah, Gnosis Validator Incentive Program, just read in the chat, Gnosis VIP. I forgot to add it on the list. I, for some reason, mixed it up with validategnosis.com. But this Gnosis VIP, please read it as well, because it's really, really important that Gnosis Validator set is as decentralized as possible. That's a very important goal. But basically, yeah, speaking of the credit card integration. Credit card integration, I mean, on the, again, if the point of sale thing, I don't think, maybe they already released somewhere in some places, but if it supports the hardware wallet directly, and this is I think NFC-based wallet, then basically it goes directly to an L2 on a Gnosis chain. It all ends up in on a special L2 basically. Right now it's based on Optimism, but it doesn't really matter. There is a Gnosis chain, on top of it there is L2. And this L2, the only reason for its existence is to make sure that transactions settle or not settle very quickly. So it has a Gnosis safe instance in this layer 2. And it's a typical Gnosis safe, fully featured. You can add keys there, remove keys. And also one special feature there is that you can set up like a card allowance, basically. How much can you spend on this card? And I think right now it works with specifically DAI. So it's kind of always things that it gets charged in USD. So the banks get all the conversion. So of course, later it probably will support more stable currencies. So Euro payments will be native and stuff like that. What was the most difficult thing to get it running in real life? I mean, as a user, it's very easy. You just get a card and you get an app. An app shows you a balance, and then you go and just do the NFC payment, and it works. On the technical side, there's a little bit of limitations around two things. One thing is basically the timing limitation on how quickly the transaction should settle, means being included or not included in the block. And this is, I think, like should be under half a second-ish for it to work smoothly. And unfortunately, currently, no solution offers that apart from having a private layer 2, like a private Optimism installation or something like this, which isn't optimal. But again, that's a change. And another challenge is, of course, since we are talking with traditional finance here, unfortunately, you have to go through some kind of a KYC process. I don't remember. I'm blanking exactly what kind of a partner is used for KYC there, because for the first 1,000 cards, again, it was semi-manual process to some extent because it was the initial try and stuff like this. But then there is a partner who does KYC. I know that blockchain and KYC are a little bit of a contentious topics, right? But unfortunately, since it has to talk Visa, until a lot of point of sale will actually support direct blockchain transactions, we have to KYC the people. So yeah, any more questions?
I think that's pretty much it. I think there was a question in the questions tab from David about specific documentation on Gnosis Pay. Was that on your list earlier in the slides?
Yeah. No, Gnosis Pay. I already answered that. There is no, unfortunately, compilation of that. It's ongoing because there is kind of we want to make there is a prototype that's functioning now. It's time to scale that it works properly for more people. There is a next wave of cards which is 10 times more, and then the plan is to release even more and more cards. And then this versus having documentation, it's a little bit right now conflict of resources. Can we use Gnosis Pay to generate virtual cards? That's an excellent question. I saw it working with a physical card. I mean, if the banking partner can allow this, I don't see why not. Like Apple Pay and other things, maybe. I mean, what I've seen basically, and I'm looking at it at a very weird angle right now because I'm looking more towards, there's a layer 2, there is a blockchain underneath it, there is a certain parameter that this layer 2 should kind of satisfy, and we have a certain bridge into the payment system and the bridge into a KYC system, and that's roughly it. And I'm not looking at the UI that much, and I don't have a card myself, so I wasn't in the first. I'm very jealous, but I'm like, I'm not in the first 1,000 who received those cards, so I'm waiting for mine, and then I'll probably. But I think you can generate at least an Apple Pay. I don't see the technical limitations towards that. Tell us more about the gateway challenge that's mentioned about AI. Yeah, like we first, I'll just tell you, instead I'll answer another question. I'll tell you a story about how we came with this kind of challenge. Basically, what we didn't want to do, because initially when I would try to discuss it, a lot of people had some ideas. Just build X on whatever, or build Y, or build Z. And I thought that it's not really a good challenge because it's kind of giving you, I don't know, a subcontracting thing to just do that. And what I want to keep is to be to keep you creative. So we try to just come up with some bare conditions. Basically, what we are interested in. Okay, we want multi-chain, and we want some cool stuff with AI related. Well, maybe it's gonna be some interesting NFT that uses generative AI. I don't know, create an NFT on one chain based on root hash of another chain, feed through the generative AI, like something really cool around this, because generative AI and AI in general is like very interesting topic right now, and we just wanted to see what you can come up with. Maybe you already have some good ideas of building something related to that. And then there is like a smaller challenge to basically just use our RPCs in your product, and I think we have like 20 top ones. Just for that, we'll receive both an extra package of basically an account, the boosted account, and some small price. Yeah, just
awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've just popped those in the chat as well, just as a reminder for people. Amazing, thank you. I think that's all the questions that we have, unless anyone from our audience is very keen to quickly pop one in there. Otherwise, I think that's kind of perfectly on time. And I just want to say thank you, Igor. That was an amazing presentation, both content-wise and also I really love your slides. They're really awesome. They flow very nicely.
It's to be honest, like the design is from Gnosis Builder, so big shout out to them. I just reshuffled, removed some slides, but you haven't seen my awesome handwriting, unfortunately, or fortunately for you, it depends.
Oh, maybe next time.
Yeah,
and
time.
always feel free to come and interact with our hackers. If you want to do something more interactive, I'm sure we can facilitate that in the future. Awesome. Cool. Just before we go, I'm just going to say a couple of housekeeping things. So to everyone in our audience, make sure that you've registered for the hackathon first and foremost. Secondly, if any of your friends want to get involved, feel free to share the hackathon links to them. Actually, in fact, maybe I'll pop those in the chat right now so that you have easy access. Otherwise, make sure you've joined our Discord, and there we have our specific zones now for our sponsors, and you can go in and chat with different representatives from our sponsors in those zones and talk about prize tracks and challenges, or just specific technical questions. Otherwise, yeah, please stay in touch. Our next workshop is going to be tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. GMT. So please stay tuned for that. I'll post announcements in the Discord as well. But I think that's pretty much it for now. Don't want to overload everyone with too much information. Igor, thank you so much again for coming and speaking. It was
thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome anytime. Yeah, so without further ado, I'll end the session there. The chat will stay open for a little bit if you guys want to send any final messages or access any of those links. Cool. So thank you all for coming today, especially Niraj for turning up at 9 a.m. in your time. Amazing. Cool. See you guys.